should vanquish Mom. She's not doing that.
Oh
Excuse
man, my family members are arguing again. What am I gonna do?
Off with their heads!
Here's how you play Gathering of the Wicked. You and your friends play villains and henchmen from different Disney movies who are fighting for dominance over a realm populated with nothing but bad guys. Gathering of the Wicked is a re-implementation of one of the first modern board games I ever owned. See, this is my well-worn copy of Werewolves of Miller's Hollow. If you're familiar with this game, I'll show you a few places where Gathering of the Wicked does something new. And if you've never played Werewolves of Miller's Hollow before, you're in for a treat. Werewolves of Miller's Hollow pits innocent villagers against ravenous werewolves. But in Gathering of the Wicked, everyone's evil, and you're split into two teams. A few players will form Team Mischief, while the majority of you will be on Team Mayhem. Team Mischief is trying to vanquish everyone on Team Mayhem by bumping them off in their sleep. Team Mayhem is trying to figure out who the members of Team Mischief are to get rid of them. The hook? No, not yet. The catch is that nobody knows which team anybody else is on, because the role cards get dealt out to each player face down. Then, once everyone has received a face down card and understands which team they're on, you deal everyone a face up character card. Meet the villains. Here are the Disney villains and henchmen you can play as. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty and her flagitious familiar Diablo. Hades from Hercules and his underhanded underlings Pain and Panic. The Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland and her henpecked husband, the King of Hearts. Captain Hook from Peter Pan and his right-hand man with both hands, Mr. Smee. The Queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and her horrible oracle, the Magic Mirror. Mother Gothel from Tangled and her hired heels, the Stabbington Brothers. Prince John from Robin Hood and his taxation-happy henchman, Sir Hiss. Lady Tremaine from Cinderella and her off-putting offspring, Drizella and Anastasia. And from the Jungle Book, Shere Khan the tiger, who doesn't have a henchman because, come on, he's Shere Khan. Game structure. You can play Gathering of the Wicked with a group of 6 to 12 players, and the more the merrier, so I'm going to depict a full 12-player game. Everyone gets a face-down card putting them on one of the two teams, Mischief or Mayhem. I'm going to tint those players differently so we can keep an eye on them without having to turn their secret role cards over. Everyone gets a face-up villain or henchman card. One of you has a special role as the narrator who runs the game. The narrator sets the scene by putting on a creepy voice and saying, "As the light starts to fade, the darkness begins to creep in and cover all those in the gathering. Now begins the night phase. Members of Team Mischief will always take advantage of the darkness to vanquish members of Team Mayhem. But they're not the only troublemakers at night." So the game structure goes like this. The narrator instructs everyone to close their eyes as night falls. Then the narrator tells the members of Team Mischief to open their eyes and decide, silently, amongst themselves, which player at the table to vanquish. Once they've chosen someone, the narrator tells Team Mischief to close their eyes, and then says, "Slowly, daylight begins to break through the darkness, and the eerie night retreats to reveal the dawning of a new day." The narrator tells everyone to open their eyes and then announces which player has been vanquished in the night, revealing that player's role card. The vanquished player is now out of the game and can't say anything. But vanquished players get to keep their eyes open the whole time and watch the fun unfold. And they're still rooting for whichever team they're on to win. Then the narrator says, "All members of the gathering look at one another suspiciously, and the tension is palpable. But as a group, they must reach an agreement. One of the members of the gathering must be vanquished before dusk." Well, that kicks off your first group debate, where all players have to decide who they're going to vote to vanquish. But of course, some of the players will be on Team Mischief and will be arguing in bad faith, trying to get Team Mayhem to vote to vanquish themselves. This is a game of paranoia and deception, and there could be any number of reasons for wanting somebody vanquished. Perhaps, during the nighttime when everyone's eyes were closed, you heard someone's elbow rustle. Or perhaps you heard a giggle. Or maybe you could swear you heard the whoosh of someone's finger pointing as Team Mischief picked out someone to vanquish during the night. During the debate, it's up to the narrator to either stoke the outrage or force a consensus among the players to choose someone to vanquish. When everyone has cast a vote to vanquish a player, the narrator flips the secret roll card of whoever received the most votes. Did Team Mayhem reveal a Team Mischief member? Or did they just oust one of their own? Or did their debate result in a split vote, meaning they missed the chance of getting rid of a Team Mischief member? Whatever happens, the narrator tells everyone to close their eyes again as night falls, and the remaining members of Team Mischief get to open their eyes and silently choose someone new to vanquish. And on it goes through the day and night phases until either Team Mayhem has successfully vanquished everyone on Team Mischief and wins the game, or Team Mischief has whittled down the other side until they have an equal or greater number of members as Team Mayhem. Well, then Team Mischief wins the game. Villain abilities. Now that already sounds like a ton of fun, but different characters have different abilities that can really spice up the game. Watch. For startsies, if you're a henchman, say Mr. Smee, and during the daytime you vote against your associated villain, in this case Captain Hook, and the narrator flips over Captain Hook's card and he was a Team Mayhem member, then both Captain Hook and Mr. Smee go down with the ship and are out of the game. So as a henchman, you have to be very careful about voting against your villain. If your villain gets vanquished by the group and turns out to be on Team Mayhem, but you didn't cast a vote to vanquish your villain, well, you stay in the game. And it's only today's vote that counts. If your villain gets vanquished and is revealed to be on Team Mayhem, and you didn't vote against your villain today, but you did cast a vote for your villain yesterday, well, that old vote doesn't count. All that matters is how you voted on the day your villain got vanquished. And if you're a henchman on Team Mischief, you can vote to vanquish your villain during the nighttime when everyone's asleep because that vote is secret. You won't get vanquished for that. Naturally, if you vote against your villain and your villain turns out to be on Team Mischief, well, your villain is out, but you're still in the game. At the beginning of every nighttime phase, the narrator calls on Maleficent to open her eyes and point at someone that she wants her henchbird Diablo to spy on. Then she closes her eyes, and the person playing Diablo gets to open his eyes. The narrator flips over Maleficent's pick, revealing the secret roll to Diablo, and then flips it face down again. Then Maleficent gets to open her eyes again, and Diablo indicates to her whether the person he spied on is on Team Mischief or Team Mayhem. Thumbs up for Mayhem, thumbs down for Mischief. I know ravens don't have thumbs, just go with it. But check this out. Diablo doesn't have to tell Maleficent the truth. Then Maleficent and Diablo close their eyes. Next, the narrator calls on Mother Gothel to open her eyes. Mother Gothel can lock a player away in a tower to keep that player from being vanquished. Mother Gothel points at someone around the table. The narrator discreetly taps that player on the back. Mother Gothel is allowed to lock herself up if she wants to, but she's not allowed to lock away the same player 2 nights in a row. If Mother Gothel locks away a member of Team Mischief, that player still gets to participate in the nighttime vote to vanquish someone. Whatever Mother Gothel decides to do, she then closes her eyes. Then the narrator calls on Team Mischief to open their eyes. Team Mischief has their own little silent debate, and then they vote by pointing at a player to vanquish. Team Mischief players aren't allowed to vanquish themselves. The narrator tells Team Mischief to close their eyes. Next in the lineup is Hades, god of the underworld, who has the one-time power to save a player who's about to be vanquished. The narrator tells Hades to open his eyes, and then indicates which player Team Mischief chose to vanquish. Hades indicates with a thumbs up or thumbs down whether he wants to save that player. If Hades finds out that he's been marked for vanquishing by Team Mischief, he can use his one-time power to save himself. Whatever he decides, Hades then closes his eyes. Finally, the narrator calls on the Queen, who has the one-time ability to override Team Mischief's vanquish pick. The Queen opens her eyes, and the narrator points to the person Team Mischief chose to vanquish, and then asks the Queen if she wants to override that choice and choose someone else. The Queen either points to someone different, or gives a thumbs down, indicating she doesn't want to use her power right now. Then the narrator tells her to close her eyes before waking everybody at the table and starting the next day phase. If the Queen chose to use her power, you reveal that person's card instead of whoever Team Mischief chose to vanquish. If the revealed player was on Team Mischief, that player is vanquished. Otherwise, the table now knows the revealed player is on Team Mayhem. If the Queen didn't use her power, you tell everyone which player Team Mischief chose to vanquish and flip that player's card over. That person is out of the game, and the players have the rest of the next day phase to try to ferret out someone on Team Mischief. Or it may happen that just as the narrator is about to announce who Team Mischief vanquished, it's revealed that Hades used his one-time power to save that player. If he wants to, Hades can tell everyone who he chose to save. And, of course, if he wants to, he can lie about it. Another way it could go is that the narrator is about to reveal who Team Mischief vanquished in the night, but then announces that Mother Gothel has locked that person away, protecting the player from being vanquished. Just like Hades, Mother Gothel can choose to tell everyone who she protected. And just like Hades, she can also lie. So those are all the characters with nighttime powers, and there are a few characters with powers that trigger during the daytime. The player who draws Prince John begins the game with a special crown card that allows him to pick one player or another to vanquish if the group winds up with a tie vote. So the crown gives him a double vote. If Prince John himself gets vanquished, he passes the crown card on to a player of his choice. Ooda lolly! The Queen of Hearts has a one-time ability to hijack the day's vote. She can stand up and shout, "Off with their head!" and point at a player, forcing everyone to vote with a thumbs up or thumbs down whether or not to vanquish that specific player. The player the Queen of Hearts accuses is not allowed to vote, and the Queen of Hearts herself always has to vote thumbs down because, well, she's the one who started this whole thing. Captain Hook gets a special rope card. At the beginning of each day, he uses the rope to take another player prisoner. If Captain Hook gets vanquished, he takes his prisoner down with him. Lady Tremaine is special because she's the only character with two henchmen. Remember that if a henchman votes to vanquish an associated villain who turns out to be on Team Mayhem, the villain and the henchman get vanquished together. So Lady Tremaine holds a lot of sway. Shere Khan is the only villain who doesn't have a henchman. Instead, he has these claw cards. Whenever he votes against someone, that player gets a claw mark. For the rest of the game, anytime someone gets voted against, each claw mark they have counts as an extra vote against them. If you pick up Gathering of the Wicked at launch, you might snag this Cruella de Vil promo card with her henchmen Jasper and Horace. During the daytime vote, Cruella gets to compel someone to vote for someone of her choosing. If that player refuses, well then, vanquished! You don't mess with Cruella. Setup. To set up the game, you'll need a certain number of Team Mischief cards depending on your player count. With 6 players, use 1 Team Mischief card. With 7 to 11 players, use 2, and with all 12 players, use 3 Team Mischief cards. Then put them in a deck with the Team Mayhem cards so that you have enough cards to deal 1 to each player. Shuffle them up and do just that. Players, of course, can look at their secret role card to figure out which team they're on. Next, you build your villain deck. You have this handy card that tells you which villains work with which player counts. So, for example, you'd only use the Queen of Hearts if you have 8, 10, or 12 players. You and your friends get to pick which villains to include based on this card, but whatever you pick a villain, always add that villain's henchman to the deck. If you have an odd number of players, you can pick either Shere Khan or Lady Tremaine to add to the deck to end up with an odd number of cards. Then shuffle the villain deck and deal 1 card to each player. Your narrator sets the scene and then tells everyone to close their eyes, and then calls out the characters in this order, being careful not to call out any character who's not in the game, or who's already been vanquished. Play through the day and night phases until either Team Mischief or Team Mayhem are victorious. And now you're ready to play Gathering of the Wicked. Did you just watch that whole thing? Oh, hey, to 100% this video, click the badge to subscribe and then click the bell to get notifications when I've got new stuff.